we'll get kicked off. We got lots on the agenda today. So first, housekeeping note to start us off. We are in the process of making this call open. It's not going to be open in a full sense. As you can see by the invites and the restructuring, what we're doing is we're taking all the legacy SPWG members, we're putting them into a webinar format where the normal people that show up on this call week to week will be panelists. From there, either yourself or anyone in the community will be distributing a registration link for the EMEA and the North America call, where you can register as an observer. From there, you can raise your hand, you can engage in the Q&A tab, and this is a hope to find new blood with some restrictions on their participation. And once we locate and identify those people contributing and engaging in the conversation and interested, showing meaningful contribution or progress, we can elevate them to the panelist status. I think this is going to be a great tool for us to just see who's up and coming, see who's participating on week to week, and begin to bring them into the ecosystem. At the very least, maybe this would be a great list for potential and future ESPA candidates going forward. So if you did have any trouble, you can always Slack myself and Vanessa on just like the logistics of joining the meeting. But everyone good with the new format as we try to bring some new blood into the conversation?
Yes, love it.
Excellent. Thank you, Hida. And again, now we have the registration links in the Global Storage Provider channel. If there's anyone you know or work with that you think would benefit, they could be a storage provider, they could be a service provider, they could develop Filecoin software, and anything and everything in between. It's open to everyone. Sound good? All right. Lots to get to today. Hida, I'm going to be coming to you very shortly. But first, I did want to start off with some major announcements that happened last week from the Decentralized Storage Alliance. So, Alice, would you mind taking it away?
Yeah, sure. I will share my screen.
Sure. Go ahead.
Beautiful slide. Thank you so much, Porter. I love seeing that slide because I just know how much the team at DSA had worked on to launch the first release. So I love hearing all about the Golden Gate release, and I love when others show the slide to me because that means it's sticking. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Alice. I'm on the network growth marketing team, and I had the pleasure of working with DSA to communicate their latest release on ceiling optimization. And we have a treat today. It looks like I see Kelly on this call today. So Kelly, thank you so much for being here. And this is just a sneak peek for what we'll be seeing next week on this call with Kelly and Daniel to talk deeper around all about the release on ceiling optimization and the work that they've done together. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 second.
Nathaniel, is that a Guinness?
I wish. It's a school night, buddy.
Yeah.
Can you see everything here?
We can.
Okay, great. Well, before I get into the DSA announcement, I wanted to open up a little bit about what's new on the DSTOR portal, because you know me, I like to put all the different pieces of content into the portal. And last week we prepared a video. It's called The One with the Boomerang. And if you press play on this Twitter post here, you'll see that Mara is featured, and you may even see a few friendly faces on this call in this video. So please check it out. But the spark notes of it is all of this different content that I'd like to share for you to access. The first is this blog written by Jen Bell, and it's all about this new hybrid storage power couple, aka tape and decentralized storage, which is a great way to share the awareness around what decentralized storage is with who you're engaging with. And also this video around why decentralized services matter to enterprise storage. This features Stefan, but also Dell Technologies, which is a huge brand name. And I think that this is worth looking into. It's a 1-hour webinar, but I found it really insightful to hear not only from Stefan, but also from experts from Dell. Now, the grand theme of today, the DSA Golden Gate release. It's about the ceiling optimization release. This is especially memorable because it's the first software and reference architecture release from the DSA. And supranational software is the big piece here that helps to reduce decentralized storage costs by 40%. And Daniel and Kelly, they'll be joining us next week to talk a little bit more about this release. And we'll also be hosting an AMA with a supranational team and DSA. So please look forward for that invite. We would also love to share this website, dsalliance.io. And you may notice that there's been a change in the look and feel, but also a whole page dedicated to the release. So go ahead and check it out. It's also got links to these videos where I interview Daniel around the goal behind this first release. And video 2 is a conversation with Daniel and Kelly going deeper into the release and the work that they've done together, as well as a blog that was written around all the different proof points that show the math behind the optimizations and the cost savings. So these are all worth looking into, spend some time diving into before we get some more FaceTime with Kelly and Daniel next week. And with that, I would invite you to come register for next week and also join the AMA on July 20th. And see you next week. Also, if you know me, you know that I'm going to promote the portal. So if you are a storage provider or thinking about becoming a storage provider, please join the Filecoin DSTOR portal. Be sure to go into the 3rd tab here where it says join the DSTOR portal and register your organization first. And then you can add as many users as you'd like. Thank you, Porter.
Awesome. Thanks, Alice. And definitely plan on showing up next week. I'm ecstatic to hear what Daniel and Supranational have to share. I mean, it's a game changer, and it's always best to hear from people who brought it to market. All right. There again, lots to cover today, but I missed them last time, so I want to make sure we get them in. Orion. Let's talk about the Lotus miner and all the Q3 milestones. So with that,
Yeah.
you take it away?
Yeah. Let's see here.
Want to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Good. Yeah, so as you may have seen, we've also posted some of these Q3 milestones in the This Week in Lotus channel. But I'm gonna walk through it more like in depth today. On a high level, we have synthetic power-ups and also implementing supranational PC2 and C2 ceiling code, which is what we've heard from in the previous Alice talking about the DSA release. And then we have like a continuation from the Q2 milestones, which were focused on sealing and actually getting them delivered through the Lotus miner. And last but not least, we are working towards high availability of window posts so that you're always able to get the most important messages on chain. Next slide, Porter. So synthetic power up, the FIP has been accepted by core devs and is scheduled for the next network upgrade on the Lotus miner side, where the timeline for that is still to be discussed when NV21 lands. But we want to start implementing synthetic power-ups already. We are quite far, and we need some wiring up before we are able to start testing on Butterfly network. But the highlight is that you're able to reduce the disk usage from pre-commit to pre-commit. So basically the wait seed period from 400 gigabytes to under 25 gigabytes. This is also extremely important with the new DSA sealing proofs, which they will probably cover next week. But on during the PC1 step, you're basically switching out a lot of RAM with disk usage, so it's quite important for the supranational code. And yeah, Butterfly network testing is probably starting in 2-3 weeks. Hopefully, I will cover it in This Week in Lotus, and reach out if you want to help test it out. We're mainly looking for 32 gigabyte SPs and 64 gigabyte SPs, and the load is not huge amounts of resources. Next slide, Porter. Yeah, so supranational PC2 and C2 sealing code, as Alice covered. Big claps to DSA, supranational, and all of those partners for creating these sealing proofs. From that effort, there's basically 2 different types of code that came out. The names have been shuffled a little bit, but something you can look at as greenfield software and brownfield software. So in the Lotus miner, we're focusing on PC2 and C2. And the reason for that is that PC2 and C2 is basically brownfield software, which means that we can rip and replace it with the current hardware profiles, and it's really easily implementable in the Lotus miner. So there, it will work with the current PC1 proofs, and then you can just use the supranational PC2, and it will do it faster, and it will do it the same for C2. So that's why we're focusing on these. So we can go briefly over to the next slide. These are basically some of the early benchmarks for PC2. So basically we're looking at 70 to 80% improvement on PC2. What is still to be discussed here is this was done in a CC sector on the Lotus miner. We have to have it work with DL sectors as well. So that will probably come at a small cost on the Super Seal benchmark here, but it should not be that much either. And the next slide. And similar here, you can see that on a single GPU, a Quadro RTX, it was around 966 seconds. With the new C2 code, it's around 140 seconds. So also a huge improvement here. What is also kind of cool is that you see the same kind of performance when going over 4 GPUs. So going from 4 GPUs, going from 520 seconds to 52 seconds during the proving part. So we really want to push these out really fast, because it means for SPs, these are the PC2 and C2 code is really GPU heavy. So it means a lower energy consumption, reduced hardware for these sealing tasks. Or if you want to keep everything up, you will have a lot faster sealing. Yeah, next slide. So unsealing announcements. As you may all know, unsealing has been troublesome. It's not that easy to get working, and it's been known for a while. But during Q2, we worked with the proofs team because we needed a lot of new proof APIs to actually make some snap deals unsealing working, and also what is basically the ideal state to come into is like where unsealing feels like PC1, because that's basically what unsealing is. It's redoing the pre-commit one part, or to try to check that the unsealed sector that you get out is the same. So we worked with the proofs team, and they've shipped a ton of new APIs. And ideally, we get to a state where we can basically stream the sealed sector from the long-term storage to the worker. So you don't have to move the data or the sector, copy it over to the worker, because that's where a lot of the issues happen currently, because the Lotus worker has to be connected to the long-term storage of the sealed sector. And in a setup with hundreds of servers, that is very hard to do on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, we're basically missing like two sub milestones on this unsealing enhancements. We have a PR for fixing snap deals unsealing and just cleaning up a lot of old unsealing code, basically, that hasn't been touched in a very long time. So that is ready to go out. So that would probably be like the next, not the current release train, but the next one. And then we're basically missing the piece to make unsealing feel like PC1. Next slide. Then high availability of window post. So window post is one of the most important aspects of an SP. You have to get this window post message on chain, or else you can't prove your sectors and you will not win any blocks. So it's kind of basically the most essential part of being an SP. So this was also like one of the milestones from what we call like the Lotus Miner V2 effort, basically doing everything more robust in the Lotus Miner. So with this milestone, we will have to build a lot of like fundamental code that we can reuse later on to build other improvements like high availability for winning post, and potentially like a new scheduler or a queue-based system instead of the current scheduler, which is also has some problems architecturally. And at the same time, we aim to like deliver one of the like most needed applications for high availability, and then we can like move from that high availability of window post and move that to different aspects of the Lotus Miner. And yeah, there's a initial technical design up on GitHub. I've also updated. I can post it in Slack, find the link. But basically, there was a old like Lotus Miner V2 high-level issue with a lot of stuff with a lot of text. But I have basically redone it, so it's a Lotus Miner roadmap, and I filled in like the Q3 milestones in there. So yeah, that's me. Any questions?
There's a lot packed in there, and there's some good dialogue in the chat. Specific questions for Orion?
I had a quick question, Orion. If the supranational code now also can do fill plus deals, or it's still CC only today?
So the PC2 part and C2 part will support deal sectors. Does not care about if it's fill plus or not. It will basically support deals. So that's the short answer, yes.
Okay, cool.
There was also a question in the chat from Julian about unsealing using the supranational code. And I'm not sure if that has been answered actually, if the supranational code actually would support the unsealing process as well.
I'm not fairly sure if that is. It might be possible later on. I think Magic answered something around it in the chat last week. But in the Lotus miner, we will not implement PC1 currently because you will have like different PC1. The supranational PC1 code has different hardware requirements. So that's not something we will look to support during Q3 as a milestone. We might look at it a bit later again. But yeah, I think with the supranational code, you will still, like, unsealing is basically redoing PC1 with some additional checks that the sealed sector that you get, or the replica that you get after PC1 is the same as the sealed sector that you have in your long-term storage. So the PC1 code from supranational should be reusable for unsealing as well. But if we get there during Q3, I'm not sure. We'll see. Did that answer your question, Benjamin?
Yep, I think it does, at least from the Lotus side. I understand where you are.
Yeah. I think you're on mute, Porter.
Oh, final thoughts, comments, questions? All right, thanks, Orion. You all know where to find him if you have async questions you want to follow up with. More hype for next week's supranational conversation. All right, thanks, Orion. Okay, let's go back to the top here. Going back. Getting to the top. All right. Cover DSA. Phil Paris is next week for all of you Europeans. Hope to see you there. We have a couple already committed to present at the network base. If you are going to be there and you want to get connected, you can always let myself or Vanessa know. We'll make sure you're hooked up with everything going on. You can always just register and attend and pop by. If you're looking for something a little bit more elaborate or more supportive, just it's still not too late. We'd be more than happy to accommodate you for anyone going. So
You're up next.
We will have more coming from Phil Paris after the show. So
is the Phil Paris meeting on a boat?
I do not know about a boat.
I saw a location being. It's on a boat. Yeah,
It is on a boat.
that is awesome.
I have to do Chesper to go to Phil Paris.
No, Nathaniel. As much as I love Phil Paris, ESPA is also next week. And I am convinced that this July ESPA is just going to be a sleeper session of just a lot of great conversations and goodness. Stu, while we're on the topic, anything you want to do to preview ESPA for next week?
Oh, caught me up on off this. Not ready for this. Well, we got some great speakers lined up. Really looks fantastic this time. I really don't want to give anything away at this point. We'll get the agenda published, I hope, very soon, so you can get to see kind of the speaker lineup and the additional tracks that we're preparing.
Awesome. Sorry to put you on the spot. All right. I did want to spend the rest of the time kind of setting up and discussing Hida's post from over the weekend. As always, our weekly update on block rewards and pledge. 1.3% decrease in block rewards from, oh, sorry, that's July 3rd, a week ago, where it was 13.7. We did have a big drop down to July 3rd, which was a 2.8% drop, which is one of the larger ones we've seen, kind of coming back into 1.3%. Pledge was flat from the 21st to the 3rd, but also just declined 0.6% from July 3rd to today. We've all been following this. We've all seen the trajectories on both block rewards and pledge. And with that, that led to a discussion post, a FIP discussion post from Hida over the weekend. So Hida, I'd love for you to just summarize what you posted and why you felt compelled to post it.
Yeah, so for everybody who is not yet up to date, I placed the link in the post a minute ago. Discussion 747. Oh, 747, yeah. Long story short, we of course knew that once the baseline was hit by the early of this year, that there will be a shift in rewards. The problem is that we didn't know that the information we had back then was not completely correct, because the minting scheme that was designed was not designed with QAP in mind. So right now we see an extreme decline in block rewards, but we don't see an extreme decline in. That means there is no incentive for people to start growing with QAP or CC faster. And we now have a decline on a decline, which results into the network dropping further, thinking it's shrinking, but it's actually growing. So there's a reduction on a reduction. And that part was not designed into the minting scheme originally. That's because of the QAP, and it's not a problem separately. It's actually something that was not thought of during the creation. So my proposal is one sentence only: shift the baseline minting from raw power to QAP. That's the only thing. That's like, you can read everything, you can read why and when, and I believe there's a lot of second or thoughts we need to have and discussion we need to have. Problem is, if we don't do this, a lot of proper and decent SPs won't be able to make it to the end of the year. That's the long story short. It's going too quick, too fast, too soon. And the solution is pretty simple as far as I know.
As always, whether you are for or against, we encourage you to add your contribution to the discussion, make your thoughts known. These thoughts and opinions do count, even if it's a question or if you're in support or not in favor. All these comments help. So please take a moment, make sure you read, make sure you add your voice to the conversation. And with that, James, I'll give you 3 minutes for the fastest 5 minutes in Filecoin.
Gotcha. Here we go. Okay, so starting off, a lot of spectators won't be able to see this, but I will be posting a video later. So watch out and Lotus announcements for that link. So the first release candidate of 123.3 was released last week. It includes a bunch of fixes, enhancements, FRPC, node operations. Very sorry about that. So a couple of highlights. Ethereum like RPC exposed Lotus is now compatible with EIP 1898. We have the piece reader code in Lotus, which now supports parallel reads, which is going to really improve speed of retrievals. We've got node operators are now able to configure execution trace cache size. And we have a lot of bug fixes and CLI UX enhancements. With that being said, if you are running with the enable FRPC equals true setting, please do not upgrade just yet. We have identified an issue where a migration of the message index is taking a lot longer than expected. But just to confirm, if you are not running that setting, you are fine to upgrade to this new release candidate. I've been running it without that setting for the last few days, and it is working very well for me. This corresponds to what Orion was talking about a little bit earlier. We have a new PhilCat tracking board. We've heard the community and we know that there are problems. Community would like more insight into what the Lotus team are doing, our progress and what we're focusing on in the current sprint. And we have a new PhilCat board, which is open to everybody. Please check out the link if you can see it. We will be updating that going forward to provide a comprehensive overview of everything the Lotus is doing, Lotus team is doing, and we will continue to update that. And lastly, we have a new state visualization tool. Just going to post that there. So one of the milestones in Q3 is to have a better understanding of the Filecoin state bite size, and we are creating new tools to facilitate that. We have the first one that has just been released. The link is there, and there's also an ongoing discussion about how we can create more tools and how we can improve that new one. That is it for me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Fastest 5 minutes, done in 2. Quite
Yeah, that was quick.
As I
All
say,
right.
posting a video, so it will be slower in the video.
All right. Feel free to join the North America call if you want to jump into the more fit discussions. Thank you, Hida. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Drop your comments in GitHub. Thanks, everyone.
Hey guys, thanks.
Adios.